So let's suppose then that you've identified all the stakeholders and that you understand what are their concerns. So now what? They all have to understand, why you're trying to do. You have to respond to their concerns in some way. As an example that I was giving, or university neighborhood partners being concerned about translations or like payment to community members. You at least have to acknowledge those concerns, and you should try to solve those concerns, whether you can satisfy them or not, because you do have the budget, maybe you don't, maybe there's like some higher decision maker that says like no, and this is why. So you have to find a way of moving forward with as much support from stakeholders as you can get, and the way that you do that is by being responsive to your stakeholders. I want to talk for some time about the stakeholder analysis or stakeholder mapping. So this is a way of determining who among stakeholders can have the most positive or negative influence on an effort. So who is likely to be most affected by the effort, and how you should work with the stakeholders with different levels of interest and also influence. So most methods of stakeholder analysis or mapping divide stakeholders into one or four groups, each occupying one space in a four space in a grid. As you can see, low to high influence over the efforts run along a line from the bottom to the top of the grid, and low to high interest in the effort runs along a line from left to right. So both influence and interest can be either positive or negative, depending on the perspectives of the stakeholders in question. The lines describing them are continuous, meaning that people can have any degree of interest from none to as high as possible, including any of the points in between. The purpose of this kind of diagram is to help you understand what kind of influence each stakeholder has on your organization and or the process and potential success of the effort. That knowledge in turn can help you to decide how to manage these stakeholders, how to marshal the help of those that support you, how to involve those that could be helpful, and how to convert or at least neutralize those who might start out feeling negative. An assumption that most proponents of this analysis technique seem to make is that the stakeholders most important to the success of your effort are in the upper right section of the grid, and those least important are in the lower left. So the names in parentheses are another way to define the same stakeholder characteristics in terms of how they relate to the effort. Promoters, so this is a type of stakeholders, have both great interest in the effort and the power to help make it successful or to derail it. Defenders have a vested interest and can voice their support in the community, but have little actual power to influence the effort in any way. Latents have no particular interest or involvement in the effort, but have the power to influence greatly if they become interested. Apathetics have little interest and little power and might not even know that the effort actually exists. And you will be doing analysis of the project that you're working on right now, and stakeholder analysis just like this. And I will also be posting some videos that you can watch on how to do a stakeholder analysis. Lawrence Agins, one of the most experienced practitioners in the field, developed the orbits analogy and terminology. Agins views the orbits as comparable to the structure of the atom. As he describes it, think of each level as an orbit of activity around the project nucleus, the decision-making process. The closer an orbit of activity is to the decision-making center, the greater the opportunity there is for public influence, in that decision. The price for being near the center, having more influence on the decision, is greater expenditure of time, resources, and energy. Agents portrays the public as consisting of 6 orbits: decision makers, creators, advisors, reviewers, observers, and unsurprised apathetics. This concept of orbits of participation is valuable. As you can see, people can move from an outer orbit to a more active orbit, but it of course requires an investment of their time and energy. A major reason for identifying orbits of potential involvement is that you might need to use different public participation techniques to involve different orbits. It is illustrated in Exhibit 4.1. I wanted to end this session on stakeholder with some of the key principles for stakeholder management. So treat them with respect, provide whatever information, training, mentoring, and other support they need to stay involved. Value their gifts. So find jobs for them to do that can catch their interests and use their talents and are not burdensome. Maintain their enthusiasm with praise and celebrations, just small tokens of appreciation and continual reminders of the efforts, accomplishments. Engage them in the decision making. Employ them in the conception, planning, implementation, and also evaluation of your effort from the very beginning. In the case of those who start with a little power of influence, help them to learn, to gain experience and to gain influence by working together and developing their personal critical thinking and political skills. So you can use this as an opportunity for them to increase their capacity. So that is like capacity building of organizations or of community leaders. As you identify stakeholders, you'll find yourself simultaneously identifying potential issues. The author just gives a list that could be aesthetics, air quality, cultural resources, economic benefit, and return. So there's many, and you could probably identify with when you start to engage with stakeholders. You also start thinking about what are the issues that they are concerned with, and that participatory process already helps you with your plan, which was to identify what are some of the concerns in the community.